So welcome to November's Supporting Productivity. I've changed my camera, so I have two screens and I keep moving, and I've changed where my camera is, and I keep realizing I'm moving out of frame or covering up words. So we went back to the waiting room this month, so didn't lock anybody out, so that's a positive, but I also have to keep looking at my participant list to make sure nobody's stuck in the waiting room waiting on me. Welcome, everybody. So excited to see all of y'all. I love this day every month. I like to talk, I like to teach, I like to get in there and kind of figure out what it looks like. And I like talking with other people who are facing the same challenges and issues and things like that. And what I really like about the community is it's not just agents and it's not just operations. It's a little bit of everything. It's good to have a conversation about who's going with who. Oh, Kelly is locked out. So hold on just a second. And then of course it's me doing all of the things. So there's sometimes that it doesn't always work. So let me figure out where her stuff went, and then we'll get okay, hold on. Back to email her. Okay. Transaction coordination. If somebody who uses a transaction coordinator kind of wants to talk about how they got to the spot where they use a transaction coordinator and whether they're in-house or they're third-party servicing, I'll let you kind of open the floor up and talk about that just a little bit while I send an email so that we can get Kelly into the mastermind. So who wants to volunteer that is using a transaction coordinator and is not doing it themselves? Of course, there's crickets. Nobody wants to volunteer any information?
I will. So as I'm still using one for my last transactions for 2024, but then I have to find someone new. She's been with me 3 years. She's not exclusive to me. She works in our Keller Williams office. No, I shouldn't say. She does a lot of business from agents in our office and outside of Keller Williams. And she used to be an agent 10 or so years ago, and definitely has the agent brain and is very intuitive. And I think that is super, super important because she anticipates what could come, what problems could arise. And she's always tweaking her language in her emails and, texting me if something's a little awry and, hey, did you see this email? And so I've had a great experience. I don't want to take this job back at all. Wouldn't, if you find a good person, they're worth their weight in gold. She charged per transaction. Her fee was $350 per month. She gave a slight discount if it was all cash, no contingencies, or asked more if it was a condominium that was more involved with HOA docs and so on.
Okay. That sounds kind of about where we got to. So right before the meeting started, I was talking with Joanne and Jen. When I hired on with the Pena team, I was hired on as the transaction coordinator. Agents had been doing it for themselves. And when you have a team of multiple agents, that means every single thing looked completely different. So my first job was figuring out what the system was, figuring out what transaction coordinator was. That was my first introduction to real estate, other than having bought and sold multiple homes myself as a client. And so definitely a crash course in how it works and what needed to happen, how compliance was, what the brokerage needed. And what I think is the crux of everything in relation to transaction coordination is the deadlines, making sure you don't miss a deadline, and how often I needed to be in communication with all parties. It's also where I learned not to be afraid of using the telephone. Definitely a hardcore millennial. I don't like calling people. If I could do everything online, I will do everything online, which is hilarious that I'm sitting here leading this and talking to all of y'all. But that first 6 months was like, okay, you got to call the lender, you have to call title, you have to call the agents, sometimes you have to call the other agents. And I'm just like, can't I just send an email? No, people don't respond to emails all the time. So we eventually outsourced for the same way. We use a third-party company. They charge us by transaction. They only get paid if the transaction closes. And it's the same price for us. It's $350 in transaction. We get a discount if we double end the deal, or if it's land, or if it's a new build, because there's less paperwork that has to be done. So for kind of a question for everybody, I alluded to it in the registration information, but when you're working with transactions, whether you have a transaction coordinator or not, so we're in a title state. So we're not an attorney state. We use a title company for ours. What is the first kind of thing that needs to happen? Like, what is the trigger for the start of what would be in the transaction coordination funnel for you, for your team, for you as an agent or as operations? Like, kind of what's the first step? And anybody can come off mute and talk. You can raise a hand. It's interactive. I'm gonna make you all talk to me.
So
Jeannie. Oh, there it goes.
Go ahead, Jeannie.
Oh, you're off mute, but we can't hear you. So I don't know if there's one more Zoom button that's not connecting for you. Yep, still can't hear you. Okay, while Jeannie figures out her sound, do you want to go, Joanne?
Yeah, for the way we've done it, I mean, the trigger is obviously the accepted offer and handing it off. We hand it off via email, where we send an email to our seller, for example, or buyer. Congratulations on your accepted offer. And then, you know, we have a little blurb that properly hands it off, you know, to say who this person is, how they're going to be helping us, what their role will be. I'm still here if you need anything, but they will be taking care of sending all the paperwork to all parties, blah, blah, blah. So and I also verbalize this to them before I just send the email. So I'm on the phone with them, congratulations. And my next step will be, and the next steps are blah, blah, blah. And then it all goes in an email, and she has an email that's intake at email. So it's a separate email, so she can monitor everything that comes in as a new accepted offer for a buyer or seller. And then I'm done. I mean, done except for watching a whole lot of emails fly back and forth. She notifies title, she notifies the other agent, she notifies the lender. Doesn't matter which side she's on, she introduces herself, has a one-page PDF summary, which I wish I could duplicate. I know she's her own program, she wrote it. And then everybody gets the email summary and then a PDF summary. And I just print that out with the MLS sheet, and I live by that because it's got all the deadlines, and I just watch the emails go. And I still do a check-in every week with my client, if not more than once a week, but I always tell them too, and I'll be checking with you every Friday afternoon to just, you know, see if you have questions, blah, blah, blah. But basically it just goes, and the trigger is the intro.
Okay. So what I heard in that is it's the agent's responsibility to know that it is an executed contract, and then you are the one that notifies the transaction coordinator, but you do that via an introduction. So your transaction coordinator is known to your clients by name and by position. Okay. Did anybody, I see a lot of heads nodding that they do it that way. Does anybody do it differently, or is there any other, what I'm looking for is the notification piece. Like, whose responsibility is it to basically say this is now ready to be processed and ready for the paperwork to happen and the checklists to start, as well as what that conversation or communication piece looks like? Does anybody else want to offer up some information? I hear crickets again.
Ours is the same. It's the agent's responsibility for just to notify. They'll notify the TC and actually copy me on it. So it's a direct connection with them. And then I just keep an eye on everything as the process goes through.
Okay. And so then most everybody who is using a transaction coordinator, is it their responsibility, kind of their first steps, to introduce themselves or make sure they have contact with the client? And then make sure that if for us, it's a buyer, if it's a buyer, that we reach out to lending with the contract and let them know it started. If it's a seller, we reach out to title or the attorney and let them know, hey, this listing is is starting so they can start the paperwork. Is that kind of the next step for most everybody? And then creating a set of deadlines? Okay. How do we go about keeping track of our deadline dates? Does anybody want to offer up kind of what that looks like as far as the operations of the transaction coordinator side, managing deadlines, and then the agents being aware of what the deadlines are being managed? And if you are an agent that is doing all of this yourself, if this is someplace that you get stuck or someplace that works really well for you, you can chime in as well. Anybody use?
Again.
Oh, go for it, Randy.
Our TC has a system they use. I'm not sure what it is, but we have access to that. Like it's like a portal where we can see everything. However, she also sends out calendar invites for specific dates with specific deadlines. And she's also really great about texting us reminders prior to. So even though she sends out the Google Calendar invites with the reminders, she also texts us the dates that are coming up.
Okay. So there's that. Does anybody else use Google Calendar, or do they use a Google Sheet that's just got deadline dates, or is anybody having emails with certain things, reminders coming through? Okay, do I have any agents on here that do it themselves that don't use a transaction coordinator? Okay, Desiree, do you want to talk a little bit about what your process looks like, or where you would want help, or what's working for you or not working for you?
I kind of feel like I do the bare minimum right now. So I save everything in a Google Drive based on a property address, and I have a certain file system. So it's very easy to know where to get the documents. I have a team I work with, mainly because I do property management full time and sales slightly on the side. So I'm trying to get one of my property management people to kind of slowly maybe take on the transaction coordinator stuff, but they need checklists. And I'm the kind of person, everything's in my head and I don't necessarily put things on paper very often. So when I did it myself years ago, when I didn't have a lot of activity in my life, it was easy. I was on it, like boom, 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 because I had nothing else to do. Now that I'm managing like 55 single family homes on a day-to-day basis, a lot of stuff starts slipping through the cracks. So I don't have a system that I've never really used, I liked the Google Calendar idea. I've never really used it to put the dates of due diligence or, home inspections. I do go to the inspections a lot. So I need a way to track when these things are happening. I'm very hopeful there's a software out there that maybe I can pay a subscription fee or something to, where I can say these are the dates, and like it's specifically designed for real estate, so they know to send those emails and those reminders and those templates and kind of have a nice, beautiful system. I want to try to keep it in-house so that I can continue to employ my property manager assistant so they can keep that job, because as we're getting more efficient, we're losing responsibilities for them. So it kind of helps because we create files the same, we sign the similar contracts, we sign the same, so there's a lot of overlap in that. I don't know that things have been super successful in the last year. I feel like every transaction I'm getting hit with emails from the attorneys and invoices aren't making it to the attorney until like the day before, the day of. Buyers, there are other agents on the other side, they have a transaction coordinator, so they're constantly like, where's this, where's this, where's this? And I'm like sending it to my person, like, where's this? And they don't have it down either. So there's not a lot that's working successfully other than the fact that we close and we have all the documents. It's just not necessarily going in a very smooth process.
Okay, so you are you're in the thick of it and you're working on it, but you need either something that is more structured or something that basically you're trying to improve your routine, your standard. You're trying to make it standardized, and then from that you can become more efficient. So we don't utilize the software. I don't know if, so like I said, we outsourced ours to a third party. So we have a dedicated transaction coordinator that handles us. We're one of her 9 real estate clients that she does through a third party company. And I don't know the software program, but a lot of what I designed and the bits and pieces I kind of hobbled together MacGyver style with some duct tape. When I was the transaction coordinator, we gave to her as base templates for things. So like all of our email templates, we gave our checklist of kind of the deadlines and what needs to be communicated to the agents we gave. And then we've developed some little add-ons to the system over the years. The whole crux of the transaction coordination, no matter who's doing it, is going to be communication. And so how many people have dedicated windows of time that they discuss the transactions with whoever's doing the transactions versus how many people are open 24/7 and get hit with things at all times and it's just chaotic? Which team are we? Are we team once a week or are we team every hour of every day? So I see a lot of people smiling and nodding. If you are team every hour of every day, would setting a weekly or bi-weekly meeting help ease that? So it's not, they're only hitting you with things that are important, things that are like, okay, you're right up against the deadline, or hey, we need this amend, or title came back with this, or I've scheduled closing. What we do is we have a team meeting every Tuesday. It's our transaction team meeting. It's actually led by our TC. She's remote as well, so she zooms in, and we go through every single open transaction, where it's at, what it needs, what state it's in, if there's missing paperwork, if there's something that's flagged for compliance, then she's been with us for almost 2 years now. So it's to the point of she schedules inspections, she schedules closings, she schedules remote closings if we need them, POA closings if we need them. She works with title on all of that, but we meet every Tuesday so that all the agents are required to be there. It's all handled at one time. It's what's closing that week, what's had their disbursement authorization sent out, what's stuck in compliance. So we're not going to be able to cut checks to the table. We're going to have to wait till it comes into the office. What is being pushed? Is the date moving earlier? Is the date moving later? We didn't pass appraisal, so now we're going through that. We're renegotiating. Or hey, inspection resolution came in. Here is what the inspection resolution is. We actually create we have a final walkthrough checklist. It's a 1-page Google document. So that anything that was repaired and required receipts in the inspection resolution is on that walkthrough checklist. And we actually take our clients back out, most of the time for our buyers, back out to the house the day before or the day of closing. And there's a list of, did they fix the roof? Did they fix the fence? Did the plumbing get fixed? Did we get receipts? Did we email the receipts to our buyers? And that kind of keeps our agents and our TC on the same page. We do the same kind of list for our sellers. They were like, hey, you agreed to do this, this, and this. These got scheduled. Where are the invoices? Where are the receipts? Because then we can pass it on to the other side. So it's all communication that is then supported by, we have a whole folder full of documents, templates that we gave. One of our other favorite templates that we have added that our transaction coordinator has input on is what we call our seller info sheet. She sends it to the sellers within 2 days of going under contract. And it's information like, where's the mailbox? Because in Colorado, most of the time it's a communal mailbox down around the corner. So where's the mailbox? How many keys do you have? Are you leaving garage door openers? Is there a garage door code? Do you have a sprinkler system? What are the utility providers? Do you have to get your own trash, or is it part of the HOA? What is the HOA? And that document is vital for providing a good customer service experience to the other side. Because 9 times out of 10, the other side's asking you all these questions, and the sellers just give us all that information. We hand the document over, and then they've got it in writing prior to. We don't normally send it until literally like the 11th hour when we know we're going to close. That way we don't have information floating out in case something happens to the transaction. But these are all templates we've created in the system over the years. Yes, Ellen, you have a question. You're on mute.
I was having trouble hearing initially, but I think one of the things you asked initially was what type of how are we tracking these things? And I'm actually our operations director, and we have a dedicated TC. And we first came up with kind of an entire list of all of the TC duties. And then from that list of TC duties, I created just an Excel spreadsheet of a tracker that took most of those duties into consideration and created like a column for each one. So as something goes under contract, she reviews the contract and puts all of the dates that things are due, when is the earnest money due? When is the inspection due? What are the contingencies? When are they due? And puts all of those in the tracker, because she's managing transactions for 7 agents on our team. So it's critical for her, with the number of transactions that she's managing, to be able to look across that. And then she puts those dates in her Google Calendar. But as things happen, she can go in and mark them as complete all the way across. I do love the idea of the kind of transaction coordinator meeting. We tend to cover a lot of that in our huddle in the morning. If somebody has something that's urgent, because I mean, seems like everything is urgent. So it's, even if you have that once a week thing, you also still have the daily stuff. This came up, price reduction, price increase, or not increase, but price reduction, addendum, whatever. So it seems like, I feel like we're team both of those. We do cover them at our meeting, but we also end up with the daily stuff. But that tracker has really helped her tremendously. I'm happy to share it. It's basic, because we just kind of started this, but if anybody like it, I actually reached out to you initially for yours, Jessica, and it was just it was above our head. I mean, it had so much.
Yeah,
We're like,
no, my TC is even more into Google Sheets than I am. So the product I have is very, very high speed. So
it's,
yes, if you want to share that with me, Ellen, I will definitely drop it in our folder. I'm gonna, as always, you guys, I hook you up with a whole bunch of resources and different pieces and stuff like that. I have an entire Google Drive folder of all of our TC materials that we utilize. And I don't mind including that if you're willing to share, Ellen, because it's a
sure.
little,
I mean,
little bit easier
it's-
to manage.
Yeah, I mean, I reached out to several experts, obviously yourself included, and took, pieces and bits from all of them. But I thought this is a starting point for us, and then we can build up to the Jessica. But we were far from there. So if anybody needs kind of a starting point, I'm happy to share that, and easy to modify.
Yeah. So if you'll email it to me, Ellen, I'll make sure it gets included when I send out the resource and replay email. It'll be part of those resources. That way you don't have to keep track of 20 people emailing you for the same thing. Yes. So I've been with the team for 4 years. Like I said, I started as the transaction coordinator. I literally did that for 4 months before I became TC and admin. So everything we utilize is had a 4-year glow up, and it's been, well, we've done almost 400 transactions in 4 years. And so it's been through the fire, it's been baptized, it's been resolved, and it works with the TC that we hired. So it's kind of, this is more to what can be done, who handles it, what is out there to help support. But if you're doing it, then it's what works for you, because it's going to be taking up time. So what does it need to make your time limit? Or if you're going to give it to an operations staff or a cyberbacker, or you're going to hire a TC company, knowing what to ask them about how they do their process, because that's one of the best things that we ever did when we hired a TC. It was like, what do you do? And then I looked at everything that they do, and then I want you to do this, this, and this. Is that negotiable? Is that part of the product? Here are the templates I'd like you to use. And so our TC, even though she has 9 real estate clients, we have hybrid what our clients receive through her as a transaction coordinator. And it's actually gone over. The company called and said, hey, can we take this into our training regimen? I was like, yeah, sure. I don't mind sharing any of that. So that's the communication piece. There's lots of ways to handle it. There's lots of ways to do it. But I find that if we have that once a week meeting, where everybody knows they need to know what's going on with their transaction. The agents have that one-time block where they're like, okay, this is everything that's going on. The other cool thing that comes out of that, if you have more than one agent or if you're a team, is if an agent is struggling with something in the transaction, especially negotiation wise, and they bring it up in that meeting, our other agents will weigh in with their experience or what questions can be asked, or, hey, I've done that before, or even just wording amendments. Sometimes they're like, I don't know how to word this. I'm not licensed. I can't do that for you, but we can have a think tank on what it could possibly say. So that huddle is very, very vital to how we do our business. But then our TC still has the ability to connect one-on-one with the agents if there's something that is more time sensitive or if they need a reminder. And that comes into play because each of our agents communicates differently. We have two that if you don't email them, it's not even going to hit their radar. You have to email them. They'll eventually get back to it. They dedicate an hour in their afternoon where they answer all their emails. We have others that if you email them, they will never even know they got it. You have to text them. And then we have other agents that are like, hey, I want you to call me, but you don't call me till after lead gen's done. So everything has to be handled in the afternoon. And our TC knowing that then knows is like, okay, if this is something that has to be happen tomorrow and it has to happen now, then she can basically send an SOS message. And then they're like, okay, yes, I need to handle this. At that point, it is an emergency. But other than that, most everything is fine. Most everything can wait 3 to 4 hours and we'll figure it out. So other key pieces that we utilize to make that communication piece more efficient. So our TC has set work hours. We don't bother her after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She's got a life, she's got kids, she does stuff. What we were finding though is by the time something went under contract, by the time the agent knew all of the parameters, knew it was under contract, by the time we actually communicated to the TC, and then like I said, she's got 9 clients, we're only one of 9. By the time we came around in the rotation, sometimes it would take a full day, 2 days to be like, okay, this is where it started, and then have all the data and have all the information. And then the very first thing was to send the email to our clients, introducing the TC, congratulating them on being under contract, letting them know what the next steps are. Back in 2020 and 2021, taking 3 days to do that was not beneficial. So we developed, we have a Google form. And I love my Google form. It started out with a very basic, like 5 questions. What was the address? Who are the clients? Are they buying? Are they selling? When are they closing? And basically, what? And whenever they fill the Google form out, there's an add-on that you can get for the Google forms that it will immediately PDF those answers and email them to whoever you want to email them to. So our agents now, when they go under contract, fill out the Google form and notify our TC within 5 minutes of being under contract. So once the agent does that, it PDFs all the information, sends it to the TC. What we were finding is the TC was being able to get the file opened with all parties, title, lending, clients, the other side, within the next business day. And so our team has a little bit of pride in our product. We like to be the first TC that emails the agent on the other side. We're like, okay, this is who we are. This is what we're working on. But we don't like when their TC emails us first. So that has sped up our response and our thing. And the Google form has evolved. Our most recent iteration is amazing. I love it because it has questions in there as far as like, okay, are they in your CRM? Because we can't do compliance if they're not in the CRM. We ask for the other side agent name and contact information because sometimes it's hard to find in our e-contract platform. And so that's right there because that makes it super smooth and easy for the TC. We ask them to identify who title is. We ask them to identify who the lender is because sometimes we don't know who the lender is until 3 days later. It's like, I kind of need to know that now. If they're a buyer, it goes down one side. If they're a seller, it goes down a different set of questions because obviously your clients have slightly different needs when you're opening their contract. With the advent of the NAR settlement, we now have space in there for what does your agency agreement say about your compensation? What does the contract say about your compensation? What are you ultimately getting paid? And things like that. So the agent is identifying that so we can check to make sure the paperwork supports that information. And then we have a whole section on closing. Who's the title closer? But more importantly, we're in a high turnover military town. We do a lot of military clients. We do a lot of remote closings. We do a lot of notary closings. We do a lot of POA closings. And so there's a section in there of like, what kind of closing does your client need? Because if we can tell them from the moment we open it up that they're going to be a remote notary closing, and we don't spring it on them 3 days before closing, that helps the lender make sure the numbers are ready for mail outs. That makes sure the title gets it all taken care of. There's even a section in there of like, is there anything about your client that the TC should be aware of if she's going to be working closely with this person? Because we do have some clients, like we have some clients that are like, they don't know how to work a computer. They're not going to sign anything electronically. So this contract's going to be all wet signature. Or the client is in, again, we're military, the client's in Korea, the client's in Japan, the client's in Hawaii. So don't expect anything before, 2 o'clock in the afternoon because of the time zones and that kind of stuff. And again, it's all encapsulated and sent to the TC. The TC can open that file and get through the first 2 or 3 days worth of stuff before they have to go back to the agent for any of the information. The agent sets it, forgets it, walks away. And then by the time we roll around to that next Tuesday meeting, they have, my mind just went blank. It's like, okay, normally by then they have the inspection scheduled and they know what's going on with the earnest money and everything's working cohesively in tandem. The other piece we use, because the TC is remote, she is a third-party company, and then I, as the director of ops, oversees I run a Google Sheets, a transaction tracker, so that I can check to see what our GCI is for the year, who's closing what the splits are, which closed in which month, and things like that. So she has a transaction summary. It's a fillable PDF that she fills out. It has both sides of the transaction. I'll put a copy of the template in the resources. But that one piece of paper, if you can't get to any of the other documents anywhere on the contract, that can answer most of the questions, because it'll have which clients on both sides. It will have contact information for both agents on both sides. It's got contact information for the lender. It's got the contact information for title. It's got the address, the closing date. Is it contingent? Back when we used to do post-closing occupancy agreements, it had all the information for that as far as deposit and rent and dates. At the bottom, it has a room for notes if there's seller concessions, if there's random weird stuff. But if for some reason we can't get into the e-contracts, or if for some reason the agents have a question, or the TC is out and about, because like I said, she's got kids, she's got a life, she's not always in front of her computer, that one sheet kind of controls the conversation. And then we PDF that with the rest of our documents and put it up into our storage as a redundant file backup. But it's our summary. That summary sheet kind of rules the roost and everything like that, and helps inform my tracker, because I am the one that orders the disbursement authorizations. And for us, our disbursement authorizations factors in splits if it's one of our team agents, because they obviously split with the team lead. So it factors in splits, but it also factors in, we do a lot of agent referrals. So I have to factor that in. We do a lot, almost every single one of our transactions, our clients pay the admin fee, which covers our transaction coordination expense. And so I've got to factor that into the disbursement, and all of it is in that summary. All of it's on that tracker. So when I order the piece of paper to get everybody paid at the table, I know who's being paid what and what that gets ordered. And so that's kind of the bits and pieces. It's all together. We also utilize email templates. So the congrats on getting your offer accepted. This is your next steps. We have email templates for sending utility information. We have email templates for scheduling, checking with them and scheduling their closings. There's just a lot of paperwork that kind of comes with that, and a lot of the communications and bits and pieces. So I will research, I can't remember off the top of my head what the Google add-on is called for the Google form extension, but I will look it up. And
Jessica, another email template that we found really helpful is a couple that stress to the client how to prepare your home for photographs. That's been very helpful, kind of a snapshot for them to know what to do.
We have that form in our listing packet. So our listing packet actually has a section that comes out of the middle and stays with the client. And then there's a section that comes back with the agents. And we are in the process of revamping that. But yes, that was one of the first, that's what got me hired. So really cool story. I was Tulio's client. I bought a house with him and Dan. 3 years later, we're military, we're moving. Tulio comes for the listing appointment. I am a type D. I'm like, just what's the number? What's the amount? Yes, you're gonna sell it. When is it gonna go on the market? This is when I gotta move. I'm gonna sign the paper line. And he's like, okay, cool. He goes, well, the photographer's gonna come out and take pictures. And I'm like, Tulio, this is the third house I've sold, but I've never been there when I've sold the other ones. I've never had to prep it. It's always been vacant. What do I need to do before the listing photographer comes out? Well, he didn't have a list. He'd been meaning to make a list for months, but he didn't have a list. And so he's like, I'll get it to you. He shot me an email. And you could ask my husband. I'm always the person who looks at everything. It's like, oh, wait, we could have done it this way. And so I have enough of a relationship with Tulio that like he shot me the email and I'm like, well, first off, it's a Word document. I know not to delete anything, but it would be so much better as a PDF so that you don't accidentally delete one of the lines if you're trying to read it and it prints and the formatting doesn't get weird. Second of all, there were 2 grammatical typos. And I'm like, well, just so you know, these words are spelled wrong. And I found out later that he was typing it on the fly, got it all out, stream of consciousness, got it thought, made sure it was in sentences and then sent it to me. And I sent it back and I'm like, my brain, my type D brain, I'm like trying to pack my house, trying to get my house sold. It's like, I want to walk through my house in a logical fashion. So everything in the kitchen should be lumped together. Everything in the living room should be together. Everything in the bedroom should be together. It was literally as he remembered things as he was walking through the house. And so I was like, I don't want you to be offended, but I totally like reorganized it, fixed the typos, slapped his logo on it, PDF'd it and sent it back to him. I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And he's like, you want a job? And so literally the day I closed on my house and pulled out of my driveway to move from Colorado to Kansas was my first day on the job with Tulio and the team. I've been remote my entire thing, but a list of what you need to do for listing photos is what got me hired. So does anybody have any questions? I know I've gone over a lot and I will be sending you the templates and the files. And like I said, there's cut a little bits and pieces of everything. But go ahead, Joanne.
Yeah, so I'm curious if you are using an outside TC service, has anybody utilized a cyberbacker? I do have a part-time cyberbacker for social media and a variety of other things, but not TC because I've had this TC up until now. She already has another agent, so wouldn't be my TC person. But I'm going to be talking to them. I'm just curious if anybody has any other companies they use that they think I should talk to or great experiences or not.
So we have a cyberbacker. She does all our database management. She does not do our transactions. We actually use a company called Avenue Transactions. The parent company is headquartered actually in Colorado Springs. They used to be affiliated with our brokerage, which is how we got into business with them. But our TC is actually remote for the company. She lives in Florida. I'm going to shout out. She's a military spouse. I'm a military spouse. Like, if you want some good help, your military spouses are phenomenal, remote, organized people. We can get crap done. Yes, this is what we were made for. This is what our wheelhouse is. And then I also know that there are. I'll have to pick up the other. I know that a lot of the pivot shift community uses Hello Leverage, and they speak very highly of Hello Leverage. And then there's another one that Josie Ambrose, who's also in the operations field, high up in the pivot, just recommended another gal for transaction coordination. I know it's in the pivot files. I don't remember the name of the company. But if I always say if you're interviewing for somebody, you want to interview at least a minimum of 2. And so you can see, kind of compare and contrast them. But those are who I know of, who I have heard. I actually know the people who have used them and know that they're recommended. So for those of you who are doing it yourself, that do not have a dedicated TC in any form of capacity, why? What is holding you back for the fact that you want that job? Do you want that? Let's rephrase that question, because why can be confrontational. That's a Tulioism. Do you want to continue doing that? And if you don't, what's holding you back? Oh, Blanca, you muted yourself. I know you're wanting to talk. Hit me with it, Blanca. You're still on mute.
I mean, I'm dealing right now with almost 14 properties that I have on the market. And since last week and this week, I think that I have got 5 under contract. Why I don't have it? Because the way my brain works is I have to really trust the person, and the person has to have similar ethics and work standards as I do. And honestly, I have not been able to find anyone, even here in their office. There's some people that have, that are offering their services, but because I know them, I wouldn't trust them with my clients. And it's the same thing when I use vendors. For me, they are extensions of me. I treat my clients with white gloves, and I want them to receive the same. So if they miss twice, I say, sorry, next. And I go, that's what I do with lenders and any vendor that I use. But I haven't found anybody that I can really trust. I mean, I haven't been on vacation, really vacation, and my husband is almost ready to divorce me because I can never stop working. And so I don't know that I was telling you the other day that I have so much good information saved on my computer, but if I'm going to locate them, I'm going to waste a month trying to see where I put it, because my brain, as an ADHD person, what mine I was that day and where I save it. So you gave me a good advice the other day, and I missed the post, but I know that it was something about like a spreadsheet and put the link, and I say, maybe I do a hyperlink in each document and put it in an Excel. So that's what I was saying. Hell, send me anything and everything. And I can hardly keep up with what I have, especially because I'm also always in training. I love to learn because it's horizon that's open. So my life is miserable right now.
So I'm gonna challenge you just a little bit. So going back to listening to one of the speakers at the Pivot Elevate conference in Indianapolis this past April. It's the Hello Fears girl whose name escapes me. Her book is sitting like literally a foot and a half to my right, but I cannot remember her name. The first question when you were talking about all that hit me was, what's the worst that can happen? If you start with a TC, which is what, if you are looking to add in operational leverage, I always recommend starting with a TC, because their input is so structured, and you can find ones that are licensed that give them kind of that extra level of being able to help you. Starting there, they can't really go off reservation. They're not going to write contracts for you. They're not going to do this. And there's so much tied to the transaction that they have to communicate with you. It's a lot harder for them to go rogue in that position than some of your other positions. And what I absolutely adore about our contract with our third-party TC is they don't get paid if the contract doesn't close. And so if we give them a contract, or we give them a couple, or hey, we have 4 this month, let's do a test run on these 4. Let's see how we work out. And if they don't work out, you're not stuck with them for a long period of time. You're not stuck paying out a certain amount. You can go through there. I would start looking there. It's going to be a little bit of a compromise with trusting somebody to do the contract, but it's also, if you want to provide your clients with good service, you have to be the kind of leader that provides good training. And nobody is going to be amazing. And if you don't spend time with them or communicating with them what you expect, the expectation, the threshold, or how you expect them to, oh crap, what is the word? They've talked about it in Pivot before, but it's like, okay, tell them what you want them to do. Let them show them what you want them to do. Let them do it. Check that they did what you want them to do. And if you've done all of that and it's still not working, then it's okay to reevaluate. But if you haven't done those steps, then it's a disservice to the person who's trying to do what you do. If you don't tell them what you want, you can't get mad at them if they don't do it. So it's gonna be a little bit of a compromise on your side, but definitely a TC, just to even take your transactions off your plate and get you back, no joke, if you are running 12 to 20 open clients, that's normally 5 to 8 transactions that are in process. That's 4 hours of your life every week without batting an eye, just in managing your transactions. So is that where you want to spend your 4 hours, Blanca?
No, no. And I'm trying to help myself. If you see, all that in the back are my approved buyers.
Yep.
And here I'm trying to create so I don't, a tracking system, and all those are the listings, and here, and those the least. So try to avoid, for me, to forget something.
Yep.
And this, I just installed it recently, but I see that I'm getting completely out of hours during the day to be able to perform everything. Plus, I have another company, so.
Nope. Nope. I don't do the whole real estate side. I literally do operations, and I don't have enough hours in the day to do everything. So like you agents that do it all, I don't get you. All I do is I feel sympathy. It was like, how can I help you? Because it's insanity to me. But
What
yeah.
is the company that you're using?
We use Avenue Transactions, but then there's also Hello Leverage, and I will look up the other one and Pivot. I will get all the contact information for those 3 because I feel comfortable endorsing those 3 because I know who uses them. I'll make sure that that's in the replay email as well. And then Blanca, one more, just because I know we've had this conversation. I know you've mentioned the fact that you're focused and you're distracted and things like that. Somebody that's local to you, or at least somebody that could come in occasionally, might be a better fit than somebody that's fully remote, because being able to meet and sit and walk through things with you is probably going to help your schedule more than having to do all of it on Zoom.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank
Okay.
you so much, though. I
Oh,
mean,
no,
I
you're
love
welcome.
you. You are amazing. Tulio is amazing. I mean, I love the calls in the morning, even though I try my best, but as you see, sometimes I can't. And I miss that. But I am so blessed that you are in my life. Thank you. Thank you for being so awesome.
I appreciate it, Blanca. Thank you. Kelly, did you want to add something? Because I think you were nodding your head that you're also one of those that does all of it yourself.
I am one of those who does it all by myself. So, Blanca, I finally, one day I had 9 things under contract, and my market center, because I'm like in top 5, my market center actually was doing things for me just because they wanted to stay in compliance. And so I did all the things for my customers. My outshowing was great, but what was happening on my desk is very similar to what's on my desk even now. And our transaction coordinator that's in our office said, Kelly, I can do this for you. And I was like, I'm embarrassed. I don't want you to see what my back end looks like. I don't want you to see the chaos that is what nobody else sees. Like, I can't let you into my chaos. And she said, trust me. And I gave her my passwords, and I sat on the couch with my husband because I would work all the time, like you're talking about. I still work a lot. And I'm watching her put things in where they need to go. And in that one evening of her working, I had so many things that were closed and paperwork not there. So what I'm trying to say, I think, is we think we're the only ones who can do it. And we think we're the best people for our customers, but that's not the truth. Like, that's not the truth. We're the best person with our customers, but there are better people in that back end, and we need to give it up. So Sandy now does all of my TC work. I did hire a cyberbacker that didn't work really well. They pretended like they were working and had scheduled emails to me that weren't really on the other side of the computer. But I now have a live person, and I'm giving things up, and I'm starting to actually be able to sit with my husband in the night instead of me sitting here and him sitting in the rocking chair that I rocked all our kids in. I have my life back. So all I'm saying is give up the control. It's okay.
Yeah.
How much is the norm? I don't know. I don't have no experience. So what I should be paying for transaction for a file? I don't have no clue.
Personally, personally, my lady only charges 250 and I pay her 300. Just because it's almost like a tip. She gave me back my life. And if I could pay her more, I would. In fact, I probably will do that. When she's sick of TCing, then I'll tell her, okay, come and work for me full time now.
So yeah, we pay ours, 350, but all they do is contract to close. So they don't do any of our listing coordination. They don't do any, because I know that, they do offer that. It's an additional cost. But, ours is just literally contract to close. It's compliance. It's keeping up with all of the deadlines. It's, they schedule inspections, they schedule closings, and then they do all of the emails back and forth to kind of push the transaction together and make sure everybody stays notified and run point, and then they package up all of our documentation and send us all of our documents, and once that's receipts and HOAs and all of the contract documents and compliance documents, and then they even break out the settlement statement for us to just the settlement statement for that particular client, because we send that to our cyberbacker who sends them all out in January. And so she doesn't have to go into each file and pull it. Our TC gives her that PDF when the file closes. And then she notifies me and our assistant when the file closes, and we do the rest of the closed transaction care from there. And then she handles all of we're in command. So we have to run all our compliance in command. So she handles all of our file uploads in that, as well as runs our transaction meeting. But it's 350 per transaction for that.
Somebody wanted to charge me 500 and I just went,
Well, and it depends on what they're doing for you. So that's where we're interviewing your help and knowing what you want, knowing what you're paying for. That's why you interview more than one person. So
Thank you.
we used to do it in-house for cheaper, but when we outsourced it, it went to 350. We were comfortable with that. And our really cool silver lining is we started charging it to the clients, and 98% of our clients pay it. So it's not even coming out of our overhead. The clients pay for that, and it's document storage and organization, and it's in our agency agreements, and it's cost of doing business, and they cover it. So it helps for us. No, and I agree, Kelly. It's like, if it's giving me hours back, I look at the return on investment on that. Depending on what they do. If they did as much as my TC, that would be cool. If they didn't less than my TC, I don't know if I'd really be cool with that. We would have to talk about it. But I got about 5 minutes left. I do intend to send you guys basically, like I said, these template files, Google files. I'll send the information in the email about a couple of TC companies. Does anybody have any direct questions, any things that don't work for them that they want some insight on, or just, is there anything about transaction coordination that is just not working that you would like to get people's feedback on from across the board? Because we're actually interacting pretty good today.
I do have one more question.
Yes.
Is anybody using Command as a way to communicate contract to close? Whether that be like triggers or no, okay.
I know it does that, but Command and I have a love-hate relationship. So we literally only, the opportunities are only there when they go under contract. We use it for compliance. Everything of communicating about the contract, we do outside of Command. And then we use Command as our CRM, because that's just the decision that we made 3 years ago, and we haven't left from that. However, in light of the recent issues with that, I am very, very thankful that we do all of our email marketing through MailChimp and not Command. And we do all of our mailer marketing through Mailbox Power and not Command, because that's been a lifesaver in the last couple of weeks. We've had to MacGyver the crap out of a lot of things here recently. But no, I know it does that. I know that there's help articles and YouTube videos. We don't do that because my TC has a whole program. And so I just let the TC do what she does and keep track of it that way, and it works and it's efficient. And so I don't force her to do it through Command. But our clients, the other thing I have never been able to confirm is if you're running all your email communication through Command and they accidentally unsubscribe because they don't want this, does it unsubscribe them from everything, and then they're not getting any communication? And that's always in the back of my mind. I'm like, no, I want you to answer things and talk to me and listen to stuff. So I know it exists. I don't have a clue how it works. I don't do it that way. So anybody else have anything, any other questions, any other contracts?
Quick question, Jessica, can you hear me okay?
I can, LaShonda, what do you need?
Okay, great. So I know that you said that you use Mailbox Power and MailChimp. What do you
Yes.
use Mailbox Power for versus
Mailbox
MailChimp?
Power is a mailing house. So they handle all of our referral gifts, all of our birthday brownies, all of our home anniversary cards, our holiday cards. And then we send 2 postcards this year. It'll go to 6 postcards next year to our past clients through that. So like your MoFo card, anything we send in the mail, they're our mailing house that does all of that.
Gotcha, thank you.
So, but yeah, so we, like I said, one of the things that I really, really like is our Google form. That way the agents can notify when that goes under contract, and then our TC is off and running from there. I get a copy of that as well, so that I know to put it on the tracker. And then we have email templates. We have very structured, what is the TC's responsibility and what is the agent's responsibility. So kind of like an SOP. I don't think it's ever been put in a formal SOP format, but very clear who is responsible for what. And we actually revisit that once a month on those transaction meetings. We're like, okay, everybody knows that this is Tiffany's job or this is the agent's job. Do we need to change any of that? Do we need to update any of that? And every time somebody makes a recommendation to change the process, it kind of goes through a formal review. And it, I always say clarity is kindness. So if we change the process and we move stuff, I'm like, okay, it goes in the SOP, it goes in an email, it goes in a text. The biggest thing is that we've had to learn, and what makes our TC work really, really well, is we don't assume she knows to do that. So the agents have been taught that if you want the TC to do something, you have to directly ask and actually ask them to do that or confirm that they are doing that. We don't just assume that that's their job, because every time they assume the TC's got it, the TC assumes the agent's got it, nothing happens. And we've been caught on that a couple of times. So when they were like, hey, you're scheduling my closing, right? Like, did you schedule my closing, or can you schedule my closing? Not just yeah, you scheduled it. No, that's not the language we use. So that once a week communication, all of our email templates, all of our transaction summaries. Again, I don't know what her notes look like. I have bits and pieces of how all of that interacts with us. She keeps her own notes. That's how she does it, as her own autonomy within the TC, but having something to start with, having some sort of tracker, some sort of checklist, some sort of, this is what I want you to do. This is what I need to do. And then what works best for you, because what works for us may not work for you. If you need Google Invites, figure out how to set up Google Invites. If you need text messages, figure out how to set up text messages. A lot of email programs, you can do schedule send. So if you need an email reminder 2 days before or a day before a deadline is due, they can literally set every single one of those emails up off that contract within the first 24 to 48 hours that it's gone under contract. And then you will get that email reminder, and they don't have to do it the day of. They can set it all in 2 days for the entire 30-day closing period. So there's ways to optimize that. It's what do you need, and then effectively communicating. So,
Yeah. Have you
yes.
thought about creating a video? Let's say you have a template, and because sometimes, like you said, it's a lot of information that we have here. And let's say you're gonna send us something that we can use. But have you thought about creating a small video of this is how you maximize this, let's say this template, and give an instruction on how we can use it, instead of us having to figure out what's the best way of using it, and trying to reinvent the wheel when you already have it.
So, yes, you're not the first one to ask. A lot of people have asked for certain things. I would love to do that. Like that is ultimately, I would love to teach. I would love to coach. I would love to kind of get in and do this. However, I am still the DO of an MREA team with a whole bunch of agents that need me 40 hours a week. And so even just doing these masterminds and staying on top of these masterminds is, gets back to what you and Kelly said. It's like, oh, wait, sometimes I forget to spend time with my husband. And when he travels 100 days a year, he gets really, really, I'm going to use a southern word, persnickety about the fact that I don't spend time with him when he's home. So it's finding the life balance. I like having these conversations, knowing what people need in a perfect world. Yes, I would love to have a whole entire video training library. I have to find time to record it. It's very much of it lives here. This is my first attempt at getting it out of here and into some kind of video, some kind of line, and then developing classes and courses and workshops and worksheets and training manuals. Any of y'all that know Josie, that's what Josie does. She has part of an operations business. I'd love to get there one day, but